The text message read, "Please help. He broke my mum's arm again." 10-year-old Lily Bennett's fingers were shaking so hard she could barely type. Her mother lay crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, blood spreading from her head, whimpering in pain. The phone number Lily texted, it wasn't her grandmother's. It wasn't the police. It was Marcus Kane, road captain of the Iron Brotherhood MC, a man with a scarred face and a reputation that made hardened criminals nervous. A stranger who had no reason to care. But when his phone buzzed and he read those 7 desperate words, the Iron Brotherhood did something that would change everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Enjoy the story. The 2-bedroom flat at 14 Riverside Estate had seen better decades. Peeling wallpaper, radiators that clanked but never heated, mold creeping up bathroom corners like dark fingers. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, the only thing that filled that cramped space was rage. Jason Turner stood at the top of the narrow staircase, eyes wild and bloodshot, hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. The kind of desperation that hollows a man out from the inside. £5,000. That's what he owed the Driscoll brothers, loan sharks who collected debts with crowbars and baseball bats. The deadline was midnight. 4 hours from now. Claire Bennett pressed her back against the banister at the bottom of the stairs, heart hammering in her throat. She knew that look in Jason's eyes. She'd seen it before, each time worse than the last. "I'm not asking anymore, Claire," Jason's voice cracked between pleading and threatening. "The savings account. Give me the card and the PIN. Right now." Claire shook her head. "That money is for Lily. For food, for school clothes, for when you disappear and leave us with nothing. I can't keep doing this, Jason. I won't." The silence that followed was worse than screaming. In that silence, Claire saw the decision form behind his eyes. Jason lunged forward, fingers digging into her arm like claws. Claire twisted away, her foot catching on the worn carpet. She fell backward down the stairs. The snap was wet and wrong and final. Upstairs, pressed against her bedroom door with her stuffed rabbit clutched tight, Lily Bennett heard everything. The crash. Her mother's scream, that terrible, animal sound that no child should ever hear. The door slamming so hard the walls shook. Then silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than any voice. "Mummy?" The word barely a whisper. Every instinct told her to stay hidden, stay safe. But what if her mum needed her? The thought cut through her paralysis. Lily turned the door handle and stepped into the hallway. Her mother lay crumpled on the landing, one arm twisted at an impossible angle, blood spreading dark from her head. Claire's eyes were barely open, unfocused, making small sounds that weren't quite consciousness. "Mummy! Please wake up!" Lily sobbed, dropping to her knees. Her small hands hovered, wanting to help, terrified to make things worse. Panic flooded through her. She had to get help. Gran. Gran who lived 2 towns over. Gran whose number Mum had made her memorize. For emergencies, Mum had said. With shaking hands, Lily grabbed her mother's mobile from the stairs. The screen was cracked but still glowing. She unlocked it and pulled up messages. 0-7-9-5-5, wait. Was it 552 or 525? The numbers jumbled in her head. She typed what she thought was right, her message pouring out in broken fragments, "Please help. He broke my mum's arm again. Mum won't wake up. Blood everywhere. I'm scared." She hit send. The message disappeared with that little swoosh sound into the digital void. 23 miles across the city, Marcus Kane sat at a scarred wooden table in the Iron Brotherhood clubhouse, reviewing patrol schedules. The building wasn't much from the outside, weathered brick, barred windows, motorcycles lined up like soldiers. But inside, it was home to men who'd found brotherhood when the world had written them off. Marcus, at 42, had been road captain for 8 years. He'd seen things that broke lesser men. But he'd also built something here. A code. A family. A line in the sand about what kind of men they were going to be. When his phone buzzed with an incoming text, he almost ignored it. Unknown number. Probably spam. But something made him pick it up. He read the message once, then again, his jaw tightening. 12 words that painted a picture so vivid and terrible he felt something cold settle in his chest. Please help. He broke my mum's arm again. Mum won't wake up. Blood everywhere. I'm scared. This wasn't spam. This was real. A child in crisis, reaching out for help to someone who wasn't coming. And that message had landed in his lap instead. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pressed the call button. The phone rang twice before a small, broken voice answered. Hey there, sweetheart. My name's Marcus. I got your message. I need you to tell me where you are, okay? Through the sobbing, the little voice stammered, Who are you? Where's my gran? I know you were trying to reach your gran. The message came to me by mistake. But I'm going to help you. What's your address? 14, Riverside Estate. Flat B. Marcus was already moving, already signaling across the room. Wolf, Hawk, Bones, now. For Harleys roared to life in the car park, engines like thunder announcing a storm. Marcus led the pack, phone still pressed to his ear beneath his helmet, his right hand on the throttle, his focus split between the road and the small, terrified voice on the line. Lily, sweetheart, I need you to keep talking to me. Tell me about your mom. What does she like to do? The response came between sobs. She likes to make pancakes on Sunday. With chocolate chips. She always burns the first one and we laugh about it. That sounds perfect. I bet they're delicious. I bet you help her make them, don't you? Sometimes. She lets me crack the eggs but I'm not very good. I get shells in the bowl. Her voice broke. Is my mum going to die? The question hung heavy between them. Marcus could have lied, could have given easy platitudes. But children know when you're lying. Not tonight, Marcus said, his voice like iron wrapped in velvet. Not while I'm breathing. We're almost there, Lily. 2 more minutes. Can you be brave for 2 more minutes? He heard her try to answer, heard the word yes come out as a whimper. Then he was turning onto Riverside Estate, broken pavement rattling beneath his tires. The building at number 14 was exactly what he'd expected. Small, sagging, paint peeling in strips. The kind of place where bad things happened and nobody looked too close. The 4 motorcycles pulled up to the curb, engines cutting off almost in unison. Marcus was off his bike before it stopped rocking. Lily, I'm right outside your door. Can you unlock it for me? He heard movement, small footsteps, locks clicking. The door opened slowly, and what Marcus saw made every instinct scream to act. Lily was tiny, all big eyes and tear-stained cheeks. Her hands were covered in blood. Not her blood. Her mother's. Marcus dropped to one knee, bringing himself to Lily's eye level. Hey there, Lily. You're safe now. We've got you. He opened his arms, and Lily collapsed into them like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline, her small body shaking with sobs. Behind Marcus, Wolf and Hawk were already moving past them into the flat. Wolf had been a field medic in Afghanistan. He knew what to do. Jesus, Wolf muttered, kneeling beside Claire. She's breathing. Pulse is thready but steady. Hawk, get me something clean for pressure. Bones, call it in now. Bones was already on his phone. We need an ambulance at 14, Riverside Estate, flat B, adult female, severe trauma to left arm, compound fracture, head injury, unconscious but breathing. We need them here now. Marcus scooped Lily up, carrying her away from the sight of her mother broken on the stairs. She weighed almost nothing, this tiny girl who'd saved her mother's life with a misdialed text. "You did so good," Marcus murmured into her hair. "You saved her. You're the hero here." The ambulance arrived within 6 minutes, paramedics moving with practiced efficiency. Marcus stood on the pavement with Lily still in his arms, wrapped in his leather cut like a blanket. When the ambulance screamed away toward St. Helena's Hospital, it wasn't alone. 4 Harleys followed in tight formation, their headlights creating a corridor of light behind the emergency vehicle. At the hospital, the nurse at intake looked up as 4 leather-clad bikers walked through the doors with a blood-covered child. Her hand moved toward the phone to call security. Marcus read the room, raised one hand in peace. "We're the ones who found them. We're staying." The nurse looked from Marcus to Lily, saw the way the child clung to this rough-looking biker, and her expression shifted. "The mother's being prepped for emergency surgery. You can wait in the family area." Hours passed. Marcus held Lily through it all, telling her stories, keeping her anchored. When they wheeled Claire toward the operating rooms, Lily's composure shattered. "Mama! Don't leave me!" Marcus caught her, turning her face into his shoulder. "They're going to fix her. That's what doctors do. And I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here until she wakes up." At dawn, a surgical nurse emerged. "Surgery went well. She's asking for her daughter." Claire lay in the recovery room, left arm in bandages and a temporary splint, face pale but alive. Her eyes scanned the room with confusion until they landed on Lily. "Lily." Her voice came out hoarse and cracked. Lily scrambled from Marcus's arms and rushed to her mother's bedside. "Mama. You're okay." They dissolved into tears, clinging to each other. Claire's eyes found Marcus over Lily's head. "I don't understand. Who are you?" "Ma'am, my name's Marcus Kane. Your daughter sent a text asking for help. The message came to me by mistake. I responded. We got to your flat, found you unconscious, called the ambulance, and made sure your little girl wasn't alone. Your daughter saved both your lives," Marcus added. "She kept her head when everything was falling apart. She's the bravest kid I've ever met." Later that morning, Marcus called an emergency meeting at the clubhouse. 20 men assembled, all wearing their cuts, waiting to hear what was urgent enough to interrupt their lives. Marcus told them everything. The text. The little girl's voice. The mother unconscious. The violent addict who'd fled. The reality that Claire and Lily had nowhere to go, no resources, no safety net. "I'm bringing this to a vote," Marcus said. "I'm proposing this chapter takes full responsibility for Claire and Lily's protection and support. Housing, food, whatever they need to get back on their feet." Every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. 20 men voting unanimously to help a woman and child they'd never met. The action was swift and organized. Wolf knew a landlord with a 2-bedroom flat available. The club treasury covered first month's rent and deposit. Members showed up with furniture, clothes, groceries, everything a family would need. Meanwhile, Detective Morrison was building his case. Jason Turner wasn't just a violent addict, he had £15,000 in gambling debts, had stolen from his own mother, had 2 prior domestic violence charges dropped when victims refused to testify. Jason was found at night behind a betting shop, trying to beg more money from the same people he owed. Patrol officers moved in fast. "Jason Turner, hands up. Get on the ground now." He ran. Made it 15 feet before an officer tackled him. The handcuffs clicked shut. He started screaming immediately, excuses, justifications, victim blaming. "She made me do it. It's her fault." By midnight, Jason Turner was processed and locked in a cell, charged with felony assault, child endangerment, and theft. The bail was set high enough that he wouldn't be making it anytime soon. The flat Wolf arranged was in a safe neighborhood near good schools. Nothing fancy, but clean, warm, and most importantly, theirs. Claire stood in the empty living room, her arm in a proper cast now, and started crying. Not from pain, but from overwhelming gratitude mixed with disbelief. "I have nothing," she'd whispered at the hospital. "No money, no way to keep her safe." But she wasn't alone anymore. The Brotherhood made sure of that. Wolf's Garage needed a part-time office manager, someone to handle paperwork and scheduling, someone who could work flexible hours while recovering. The pay was fair, the hours reasonable, and the position came with the implicit protection of being Iron Brotherhood affiliated. Legal aid was arranged. A restraining order filed before Jason even made bail, which he wouldn't. The prosecutor was stacking charges like firewood, building a case that would put him away for years. But the moment that stayed with Lily forever came when Hawk walked into the new flat carrying something wrapped in brown paper. Hawk was 58, a man with prison tattoos and a face like weathered leather. He looked exactly like what most people feared. But when he knelt beside Lily and handed her the package, his gruff voice went soft. "This is for you, little one. Thought you might like it." Lily unwrapped it carefully, revealing a stuffed unicorn, pristine white with a rainbow mane and glittering horn. Her eyes went wide and she clutched it to her chest. "Every little girl deserves to feel safe," Hawk said, his voice rough with emotion he didn't bother hiding. "This is just the start. You got a whole family now, kid. We take care of our own." Claire watched this exchange, watched these rough men who the world labeled dangerous treat her daughter like she was made of gold, and she realized something profound. That wrong number text hadn't just saved their lives that night. It had given them a future. 3 months is both forever and no time at all when you're rebuilding a life from ashes. For Claire and Lily, those 90 days were a study in transformation. The nightmares didn't disappear overnight. The fear didn't vanish with the restraining order. But slowly, day by day, they learned what it felt like to breathe without terror. Claire's arm healed better than doctors predicted. The physical therapy was brutal, exercises that left her sweating and crying, pushing through pain that made her want to quit. But she didn't quit. She showed up to every session, gritted her teeth through every movement, because quitting wasn't an option anymore. By month 2, she had most of her range of motion back. By month 3, she was working full days at Wolf's Garage. Wolf had been skeptical at first. A woman recovering from trauma running his operations? But Claire proved him wrong within the first week. She reorganized the scheduling system, implemented a new inventory tracking method, and handled difficult customers with a grace that actually increased repeat business. By the end of the first month, Wolf pulled her aside and said, "I don't know how I ran this place without you." The paycheck wasn't enormous, but it was steady. Honest money earned through honest work. For the first time in years, Claire could look at herself in the mirror and see someone who wasn't just surviving, she was building something. Lily thrived in ways that made Claire's heart ache with gratitude. The new school was smaller, safer. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had been briefed on the situation and kept a careful eye without making Lily feel different or damaged. Lily made friends quickly, real friends, not the scared kids from the old estate who'd learned to keep their heads down and their mouths shut. The therapy sessions with Dr. Ramon were helping. Lily would come home and tell Claire about the exercises they'd done, the drawings she'd made, the ways she was learning to process what had happened without letting it define who she was becoming. The stuffed unicorn Hawk had given her, which Lily had named Starlight, sat proudly on her bed, joined now by books about space, art supplies, and a growing collection of badges from the hospital volunteer program she'd joined. But it was the small moments that showed the real transformation. Lily laughing at dinner without looking over her shoulder first. Lily singing in the shower without fear of being told to shut up. Lily asking if a friend could come over, something she'd never felt safe enough to do before. The party at the clubhouse for Lily's 11th birthday was Marcus's idea, though he pretended it was a group decision. The main room had been transformed with streamers and balloons in purple and silver, Lily's favorite colors, information Marcus had filed away from one of their many conversations. There was a cake from the Good Bakery on Main Street, decorated with unicorns and rainbows because Hawk had insisted and nobody argued with Hawk about things involving Lily. Club members showed up with their families. Wolf's daughter Emma immediately took Lily under her wing. Bones brought his twin sons who taught Lily card tricks. Hawk's wife brought homemade cookies that disappeared within minutes. Children ran around the clubhouse like it was any other family gathering, because that's exactly what it was. Claire stood near the food table, watching her daughter play with other children, watching these rough men who the world labeled dangerous treat Lily like she was made of glass and gold. Watching them prove that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when you have nothing and stay until you have everything. Wolf's wife noticed the tears in Claire's eyes and squeezed her shoulder. "They're good men," she said quietly. "Once your family forever." When the cake was cut and the candles blown out, Lily made a wish she wouldn't tell anyone, and presents were opened. Marcus approached Lily with one final gift. It was small, wrapped simply in brown paper, and when she tore it away, she found a phone. Not fancy, not expensive, but brand new and fully charged. "Check the contacts," Marcus said, kneeling down to her level like he had that first night when she'd opened the door covered in her mother's blood. Lily navigated to the contact list and saw one name saved, Uncle Marcus. Her face lit up with understanding and joy. "You ever need anything, you call me," Marcus said, his voice serious despite the party noise around them. "Day or night. Doesn't matter what time, doesn't matter what it is, you call me. No wrong numbers this time. You understand?" Lily threw her arms around his neck with the unself-conscious affection of a child who'd learned that this man was safe, that he meant what he said, that he'd proven over 3 months of showing up that he wasn't going anywhere. "You're my hero," she whispered into his leather cut. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd thought had calcified years ago. He pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes, this tiny girl who'd been braver than most adults he'd known, who'd saved her mother's life with a misdialed text and refused to give up when everything was falling apart. "No, sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion he didn't bother hiding anymore. "You're mine. You're the bravest person I've ever met. And don't you ever forget that." Across the room, Claire watched this exchange, watched her daughter find safety in the arms of a man who society said should terrify them, and she understood something profound. That wrong number text hadn't just saved their lives that night. It had given them something more valuable than safety. It had given them belonging. The justice system moves slowly, grinding through procedures with agonizing pace. But sometimes, when the evidence is overwhelming and the crimes are clear, that machinery produces exactly the outcome it's designed to deliver. Jason Turner's trial lasted 3 days. The courtroom was packed. Claire sat in the front row with Marcus beside her, his presence a solid wall between her and the man who'd nearly killed her. Lily stayed with Wolf's family, she'd been through enough. She didn't need to see this. The prosecution presented their case with surgical precision. Medical records showing Claire's shattered radius and ulna, the fracture that had required 2 surgeries and 16 pins. Photographs of the crime scene, the blood on the stairs, the impossible angle of her arm, evidence markers scattered across the landing like confetti at the world's worst party. Testimony from the paramedics who treated Claire, who described finding her semi-conscious and going into shock from blood loss and pain. Then came the recording of Lily's call to Marcus. The courtroom went silent as that small, terrified voice filled the space. "Please help. He broke my mum's arm again. Mum won't wake up. Blood everywhere. I'm scared." Several jury members were crying by the end of it. Claire was crying. Even the judge had to take a moment to compose herself. The defense attorney tried. He really did. Painted Jason as a victim of addiction, a man who'd made mistakes rather than choices, who needed treatment not punishment. But when Jason took the stand and immediately started making excuses, blaming Claire for not giving him money, claiming she provoked him, saying he didn't mean for it to go that far. The jury saw exactly what kind of man he was. Someone who'd break a woman's arm and then blame her for it. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. This man gambled away £15,000 of his elderly mother's retirement savings. He accumulated massive debts to dangerous criminals. And when his girlfriend refused to hand over her emergency fund, money meant to feed and clothe their child, he threw her down the stairs with such force that her arm shattered in 3 places. Then he ran. Left a woman bleeding on the floor and a 10-year-old child to save her mother's life. That's not addiction. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of violence, cowardice, and absolute disregard for anyone but himself. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Felony assault. Child endangerment. Elder abuse. Grand theft. The crimes stacked like bricks building a wall between Jason Turner and freedom. When the judge read the sentence, her voice was steel wrapped in ice. Mr. Turner, you've shown no remorse, no accountability, and no understanding of the devastation you've caused. The court sentences you to 8 years in state prison with no eligibility for parole for 5 years. Perhaps that time will give you opportunity to reflect on the kind of man you've chosen to be. Claire felt Marcus's hand squeeze hers as the bailiffs led Jason away in handcuffs. For the first time since that night on the stairs, she felt something that might have been peace. Not joy, there was too much trauma for joy, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing her daughter was safe. That justice had been served. That the monster had finally been caged. Life moved forward. 6 months after starting as office manager, Wolf promoted Claire to shop manager with a raise that made her gasp. "You've earned it," Wolf said simply. "This place runs better than it ever has. I'd be a fool not to recognize that." The money was enough. Enough to start looking at houses instead of renting flats. Enough to save. Enough to breathe without panic. A year after that terrible night, Claire put a down payment on a small 2-bedroom cottage 3 blocks from Lily's school. It had a garden where she could plant flowers in spring. A front porch where they could sit on summer evenings. It was theirs. Truly theirs. Not rented. Not temporary. Home. Lily flourished in ways that still took Claire's breath away. Honor roll every term. President of her year's student council. Volunteering at St. Helena's Hospital on weekends, pushing the magazine cart, talking to patients, bringing light into sterile rooms. When people asked what she wanted to be when she grew up, she never hesitated. A nurse. Because nurses helped save my mom when everything was broken, and I want to help save other people too. The Iron Brotherhood remained what they'd become that first night, extended family. Marcus came to every school event, cheering louder than anyone when Lily won the Year 6 speech competition. Hawk taught her to maintain her bicycle, to check tire pressure and oil the chain. Wolf's daughter Emma became her best friend, the two of them inseparable, planning sleepovers and sharing secrets the way young girls do when they feel safe enough to be vulnerable. The club celebrated birthdays, showed up for milestones, existed as a safety net that never wavered. When Lily's school held a career day and she brought Marcus to speak about mechanics and motorcycles, the other children's eyes went wide at this intimidating biker. But by the end of his talk, they were asking questions and laughing at his stories. Seeing past the leather to the man underneath. 2 years after that night, Claire stood in her kitchen, a real kitchen in a house she owned, making pancakes with chocolate chips while Lily cracked eggs and got shells in the bowl, and they both laughed about it. The Sunday morning ritual they'd talked about during that desperate phone call had become reality. Marcus stopped by that morning like he often did. He didn't knock anymore. Just walked in, called out, "It's me," and was immediately ambushed by Lily demanding he judge whether her egg cracking had improved. "Much better," Marcus said seriously, examining the bowl. "Only 2 shells this time. Practically professional." They sat around the kitchen table eating slightly burned pancakes, Claire still couldn't get the first one right, and for a moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Safe. Warm. Home. You know, Lily said through a mouthful of pancakes, I was thinking about that night. When I texted you by mistake. Yeah. Marcus said carefully. It wasn't a mistake, Lily said with the absolute certainty of a 12-year-old who'd figured out how the universe worked. It was meant to be. Because if I'd texted Gran, she lives so far away. She couldn't have gotten there in time. But you did. You saved us. So it wasn't the wrong number at all. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. Marcus cleared his throat roughly. You're right, kiddo, he said quietly. It was exactly the right number. This story isn't about bikers or gangs or stereotypes. It's about a terrified 10-year-old child who reached out for help in the darkest moment of her life, and a man who chose to answer even though he had no obligation, no connection, no reason except that it was the right thing to do. It's about how sometimes heroes don't wear badges or capes. Sometimes they wear leather and ride motorcycles into the night when a stranger needs saving. It's about how family isn't always blood. Sometimes family is the people who show up when you have nothing, who stay when things are hard, who prove through actions that you matter, that you're worth protecting, that you're not alone. It's about how one moment of courage, a little girl typing a desperate message with shaking hands, a biker choosing to respond instead of ignore, can change the entire trajectory of lives that seemed destined for tragedy. Because in the end, Lily's text message wasn't sent to the wrong number at all. It was sent to exactly the right one. If this story moved you, subscribe now and share it with someone who needs to believe in heroes again. Comment what justice means to you. Let's show the world what real strength looks like, not the strength to hurt those weaker than you, but the strength to protect them. Hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories like this that prove humanity isn't lost. Not yet. Not while there are people willing to answer when strangers call for help.